Hi, it's Linda with No Frills ASMR. I've been gone. I've been gone for about a week, but hopefully you didn't miss me because I have been posting videos each day that I pre-recorded. But I haven't kept up with all the comments, so I'm sorry if you commented and I didn't respond. I've just been not able to access the internet all the time. But anyway, so I'm back from a little road trip, and I just thought for a little relaxation and fun, I'll just tell you a little bit about what we did. And if you're thinking of a road trip within the United States, some places you could think about going that are sort of, I'm kind of frugal. So I'll tell you how we do it frugal. All right, so the first place we went, okay, just so you know, if you're not from the U.S., because I know some of you aren't, here's the country. And I've done road trips all over the United States. I mean, all over the place. But this time we were over in this area over here. I mean, the whole thing was kind of like this whole area, but the part I'm going to talk about today is like over here somewhere. I'll show you up close. Here's the map of New Jersey. And we started off. Hold on, I feel like my camera's like too high. Okay, we pulled in to Nazareth, feeling about half past dead. We pulled into Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and we were there for one particular reason, and that was to take a tour of the Martin Guitar Factory. Let me take this. This was the sticker to get you in the tour, but they gave you this, what's the word I'm looking for? The whole, whatever. Anyway, so we went on a tour of Martin Guitar, and Martin Guitar Company has been in Nazareth, PA since the 1800s. And their factory has been there making guitars since then. And you go online, and for $5, you pick a date and time, and you reserve yourself a little slot in the tour, and they take you on a tour of their factory. Hold on, my ear itches. I gotta itch my ear. I have a couple of pictures. My photos, for some reason, loaded completely out of order. So I'm gonna have to try to pull it up here. Hold on. So they take you on this tour. That was our tour guide. And it's C.F. Martin Company Factory. And there's a picture of Hank Williams, Sr. And, it's a big factory. And they show you how they make every part of the guitar. They tell you about all the wood that they use. They show you, how they brace them, how they make the fretboards, how they glue them, how they spray them. I mean, every part of it. What was he doing here? I can't remember. I guess he's bracing it. Not really sure. And this was really pretty interesting. They showed how they use this. I guess that's abalone, maybe, like mother of pearl inlays, and how they cut them out and then they place those in there. And I found it interesting when we watched somebody actually working on it, that they'll have like a strip, like a straight strip of mother of pearl, and they'll set it in, and as they're setting it, they break it to kind of go around the corner. So it's really like one piece that gets like broken as it goes. I would have thought they set in little pieces. Wasn't quite how they did it. Like for that, I don't know. That was neat. That was pretty neat to watch. I'll show you real quick. I have this guitar book here, in case you're not familiar with a Martin guitar. I mean, this is like a very, very old Martin guitar, but this sort of style of guitar, my book's almost too big. It's an acoustic, style guitar. And I'm sorry if you hear Cooper's crying because I haven't been home and he misses me. But they all are pretty similar, and that would be my only, I'm not generally a Martin guitar person. I don't know much about them. It was very interesting to take the tour, but all their guitars are, in my mind, I know they're not, but in my mind, they're very kind of similar. Like these are all Martins in different woods. D18, HD28. Oh yeah, and they showed us how sometimes there'll be one piece on the back, sometimes they'll be split, and then sometimes they do a thing like this, so they have 3 pieces, and they're split like that. So she showed us those. That was cool. Yeah, they were working on their 3 millionth guitar. I think it was 3 million. And they showed us that one, which is going to be really cool. They make these special guitars for the, when they hit those numbers. I'll show you. So the other thing, once you take the tour, they have a museum, and you can walk around and read all the signs and look at all the guitars in the museum and mandolins and things like that. So that was pretty neat. And they show all the different musicians who play them. There's John Mayer. And that's like a, what the oldest workshop looked like in the beginning. They have kind of and here it shows Hank Williams, blue suede shoes, kind of the beginnings of the 1950s there. I think this one probably somebody put a hole in to put electric in there, I bet. Ricky Nelson. And then here's the very first guitar. It says Stauffer style guitar. I don't know. Is that the one we saw in the book? Maybe. The oldest instrument made by C.F. Martin Sr. in the collection. This Stauffer style guitar is constructed with flamed maple back and sides and an elaborate clock key adjustable neck, fashioned from inlaid strips of ebony and ivory. When we were there, we were looking at this guitar, and we were the only people in there. And I was like, wow, how valuable must that be? And people could come in here and steal it and stuff. So we walked around the museum, and when we came back in this display, that guitar was gone. I was like, oh no, we didn't do it. But anyway, it was pretty interesting. They talked about, this was the original Martin. It's been handed down through the family. And the Martin, I think it's his son or grandson, I'm not sure. He lived through the Depression. And so he was making the same style guitar. And people, this is in the early, late 50s, early 60s, I think. People were moving towards electric guitars. But he was like, we're not changing where our factory is located, which was a different location. Hold on, I'll show you a picture actually. And we're not going to change the style of guitar we make because this is what we do, But he had orders. He was 2-year back ordered because he could only produce so many guitars in the old factory. But he was just from the Depression and didn't believe in spending money too much, so he didn't want to spend money he's like, we're making money, we're fine. Well, eventually his son, I don't remember that Martin's name, but they said he was into race cars and living the life. But he took over the company. I guess in this, I think it was the early 60s, and they moved it from the downtown location to the location in Nazareth, same town where it is now, and they rebuilt this to look identical to the original factory. And it does, because we drove by the original factory too, and it looks just like this. But this has a huge, big factory on the back side of it. So that's where it is today. And then they could make tons of guitars. And they had some electrics they showed there that they tried, but it just, it wasn't for them. They went back to their, not that they don't have electric in their guitars, but you know what I mean, like solid body kind of things. So they still make like the classic looking Martin, and it's just been classic for all time kind of thing. So it was interesting. That was interesting. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say about that. I don't think so. So that day we were driving there, and we were afraid we weren't going to make it in time for our tour because we had traffic. So we just ate like Cliff Bars and nuts and dried fruit that we had. And we went to the tour, and then we weren't really hungry yet. So from Nazareth, we drove to our next location, which is, let's see, we drove down here to 78 and then drove down this, whatever, 31202, I don't know, down here. Where is it? Oh, here it is. And then drove across 518 over to this town of Hopewell, New Jersey. Because in Hopewell we had some appointments with some people around there that we had to do. So we spent the night there, and I'll show you the Airbnb we stayed in. It was an old chocolate factory is what it said on the Airbnb listing, and it was an old chocolate factory. So you walk in, and here's the front room. And by the way, these ceilings are tall, like it's big. And I love staying at like interesting buildings. I always love that. So you walk in and you have this room. It's way too much. It's for two people. It's way too much space. And then this is the like living room area. And I don't know if you can tell, these ceilings are absolutely massive. And then there's like the brick wall, and there are all these giant windows and a dining room table. And I'm just going to tell you right now, here was the problem. This chair, uncomfortable. This chair, I don't know what that is, uncomfortable. That chair, I like these old office chairs, but not comfortable. It was like wobbly and weird. And then in the main room here, these were, you couldn't sit on these. They were terrible, and you felt like the back was going to just break off them. They were just super uncomfortable. Over here in the living room, you see what this is? It's a church pew with pillows. Like nobody's sitting on that. This was some vintage, like, patio lawn furniture kind of thing. But the cushions were so worn out. They were terrible, uncomfortable. And then I don't know what you do with this rocker lay down. This thing was interesting because it had springs, but not comfortable. So it was odd that you have all this space and not a comfortable seat in the whole place. You know what I mean? But anyway, and then right through here is the bedroom. And so look, that was real cute. The bedroom was sweet. They had painted the brick a little bit white, but aged it and had this, and it was a comfy bed. So that part was good. And then over here, you can't see it, but there's a kitchen. So here's something funny. I looked up the building because I was like, I want to know more information about this building. And at one point, it had been the Electric Thermovibra Company in 1906, and it was an electric thing you attached to your hand. Hold on, shoot. And it says about it. This was in the advertisement in 1907. It removes pimples, blackheads, and dandruff, and at the same time provides an active exhilaration. And they say, this delivered a finger massage without unsanitary rubber attachments and without wearing out the operator's finger muscles. I think that could be a better selling thing than chocolate if they said it's like a chocolate / vibrator. But anyway, that was sort of funny. Now, one thing I liked about this Airbnb, they had this huge bookshelf with all kinds of books. And I always like looking through books like that. So that was fun. I almost made a video of a book tour, but I didn't get it done. And there's kind of the room. Okay, so that night we were starving. And it was like 1,000,000,000,000,000 degrees. I'm not exaggerating. And humid. So like 100% humidity, like where it's like just wet. You know what I mean? But we walked over to this place, which was called Nomad Pizza. It was really cute and, you know, easy walking from our place. And we said, well, we'll sit inside because it's so stinking hot out. But they left all their doors open. They had like multiple doors. So it was very hot and humid, even inside the restaurant. But whatever. So at that restaurant, we ordered, I'll tell you what we ordered. That's not our menu, hold on. Okay, let's see. We got the meatballs, which were $12. Our homemade meatballs with croutons, Parmesan, local organic mixed greens, and balsamic vinaigrette. Those were nice because I think there were 4, pretty good sized meatballs, and then a big green salad with it for $12. I thought that was very reasonable. And then we got 1 margarita pizza, which is Italian tomato, basil, mozzarella, and Parmesan, and that was $13. And then I got a split, it's called, of Chardonnay, which is like a small, like a half bottle. And in New Jersey, if you don't finish it, you can cap it and carry it out. So I was like, okay. So that was only $12. I was like, that seemed like a pretty good deal for that because I had some to take home. So I think it was like $36 plus tip. And, there were 2 of us. Excuse me. So that was pretty good. We enjoyed that, except that it was really hot. Let's see if they have a picture of my meatballs on here. Yeah, that's our pizza. Maybe we got pepperoni or this. We may have gotten that. I can't remember if we got because sometimes I don't like margarita because it gets too wet. That fresh mozzarella kind of makes it wet. They don't. Oh, here are the meatballs. Yeah. See, you got these are pretty big meatballs, and it came with that bread and salad, so that was pretty good. Anyway, okay. So then while we were there, it starts pouring down rain. And we had just enough of it stop raining so that we could run back to our Airbnb. And then it started to pour down rain again. So we just hung out at the Airbnb that night. Here's a map of the area. So this is Princeton. And where we were was up here in Hopewell. And we stayed across from the tomato factory on Railroad Place. And then I think the pizza place was right here on Blackwell and East Broad Street. Whenever I stay at an Airbnb, I try to stay right in the downtown so I can walk. So I can just park the car and not drive again. Because I like to just be able to walk everywhere. So I think that's where that was. And then the next morning, we got up and this Airbnb had a coffee maker called, this is minutia right here, called a Nespresso. That's the one that George Clooney stands for. And I'd never tried that. And I don't like Keurigs very much. I always feel like the coffee's trash. But the Nespresso, oh my God. I brew it and it like looked like good coffee, really good coffee. And it was delicious. I was like, wait, do I need one of these things? I don't know. So today, this morning, I got up, I was looking at Nespressos. I'm like, do I need an espresso? I don't know. I usually hate that because it's got like plastic and stuff. But apparently you can recycle those things. They take them back and everything. I was like, I don't know. Because lately I've only been drinking 1 cup a day. And I feel like maybe if that 1 cup were that delicious, I'd be the happiest person in the world. If anyone owns an espresso machine, let me know. Not espresso, Nespresso. You like put this thing in, close it, hit a button. Anyway, so the next morning we got up and walked down. I think it's right here on this Greenwood Street. Maybe there's a place called, here, I'll pull it up real quick. Because this place was nice, I thought. Yep, here we go. Okay, it was called Aunt Chubby's Luncheonette. Yeah, there's a, oh, hold on, let's watch this video. Hopefully there won't be sound, I don't think so. So yeah, there's the luncheonette. It was real cute. And you go inside. Yep, that's what it looked like. And there was like a bar where you could eat. But we sat like back in this corner back here. And again, this day it was really hot. They had tons of outdoor seating, but it was just so humid, like you were dripping sweat. So we went there, and they were a little pricey, I'd say, although I don't know what pricey is anymore. I just don't eat out very often. But so, and just a lot of food. Like while we were walking in, I was looking, and people had like these huge plates of food, which I was like, I can't eat that much. And I'd already had, I think, 3 Nespressos at the Airbnb. So I was like, I can't really have coffee and I don't want this much. So what we ended up doing was, hold on, let me see if they have a menu that I can show you. Here we go. I think, hold on. I know this is minutia. Okay. So we ended up getting this roasted veggie bowl, which says it's gluten-free and VGO. What is that? Vegan option. Okay, well, we didn't. It has 2 eggs, any style. I got them over medium because my husband doesn't like a super runny egg. Cherry tomato, no, sorry. Mushrooms, yes. Sweet potato, yes, please. Roasted tomatoes, caramelized onions, which honestly, in my opinion, they didn't caramelize them enough. They were just like what do they call that? Like wilted or like just barely cooked. They weren't caramelized like sweet, but they were still good. And then arugula. And it was $17.25, and I was like, I don't need to spend, that much on breakfast. But my husband and I split that. And then we got 2 of their fresh squeezed orange juice. He actually ordered the orange juice first. I was like, took a sip. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that too. So we both had that, and we split the roasted veggie bowl. And I'm always like this much embarrassed that the waitress is going to be like, whatever. But she was like, totally like, yeah, for sure. It's plenty to split. So, and then we ordered a side of the whole grain toast or something, which I think they make there, but everything was delicious. Like, it was plenty of food and really yummy. And this fresh squeezed juice was delicious. So we were happy with that choice. So if you're in Hopewell, New Jersey, try Aunt Chubby's Luncheonette. I'm sure their coffees were delicious. I was just coffeeed out. Let's see if they have a picture of the veggie bowl here. They don't, but they have the huevos rancheros. This is kind of, I mean, it was big like that. Like, it was plenty. Okay. So there's Hopewell. And then we left Hopewell. By the way, at this Airbnb, they had these like wildflower gardens. So pretty in New Jersey. All their flowers were like beautiful and in full bloom, and I can't get anything to grow where I am. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so we left New Jersey. Hopewell, where are we? We did all our stuff we had to do that day, so we didn't leave until like maybe 4 o'clock at night or something. But then we drove, I think we drove up 31 all the way up here. Let me see, to this right here. And it's called Delaware Water Gap. And this is all the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area. I've never been to this area. This is in the Poconos Mountains. Beautiful. Really, really pretty area. Beautiful area. I could see going there and staying. There were a lot of like cute places you could stay, and you could hike, and a lot of bikers. The Appalachian Trail runs right through there. In fact, this is it right here. Here's the Appalachian Trail, and it goes, I'll show you where it went by our hotel, but it goes right through here and up this way. And they had a service, like a livery, is that what you call it, in right by our hotel, where you could rent canoes or kayaks or even, what do you call them, like rafts, I guess, rafts. And I assume they drive you up in a van and then you go down the river. So I think I want to go back and do that, because when I was growing up as a kid, my favorite thing in the world in Michigan, we used to do these canoe trips, and they'd drive you up and you'd canoe and then camp and then canoe. I loved that. So I think I might have to go back, but I'll show you what we did there in, I'm sorry if you hear Cooper, he's crying. He keeps crying, so I feel bad almost. I'm going to read this a little bit. Hold on. What? No, not that. Sorry, I'm on my iPad trying to get this to come up. Okay, here we go. We stayed at, this isn't it. No, that's not it. Hold on. Oh, shucks. I sent myself the wrong link. Like I said, oh, I forgot to tell you one thing. At the Airbnb in Hopewell, in the morning, there's no TV or anything, but they had the bookshelf. And because there were no comfy chairs, I had to like sit in bed, which is something I never do. I don't sit in bed. I'm not that kind of person. But I got my coffee and I'm sitting there in the bed, and I started the night before, while it was raining, I started reading this Steve Martin, Born Standing Up. This is a good book. I kind of wanted to steal the book, but I didn't. But I may have to get it and read it. I think I end up reading like half of this book, so I recommend. But yeah, here's my Nespresso coffee. Look at how beautiful it is. And this bed was super comfy. Oh, there I am. So yeah, that was nice. That was nice. Did I show you the bookshelf? Oh, and that's where the Michelin Man art was. Very coincidentally, on the day I think that I posted that video, I'm like, wait, what? What are the chances of that? I mean, seriously, what are the chances? How crazy. Yeah, here's the bookshelf that was in there, and the bookshelf overlooking the living room area. She had some pretty pottery too. Anyway, okay. So then we drove to Delaware Water Gap, and we stayed here in this very, very old building, and it is called the Deerhead Inn, and it is the oldest continuously running jazz club in the United States. How about that? And we had a great time. We had so much fun here. So you park in a parking lot like right here, and this bottom floor is a restaurant and jazz club. And then these floors, all these floors, are guest rooms. I guess these are. I'm not really sure. Maybe this is the people who own the place, but I think they're guest rooms. I think they have like 8 rooms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe this floor is for the owners, and you're up here. Because this was my room right here. This one on the corner. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So I had read about this place, but I've never heard of anybody going here. Like I asked around, to even people who were like really into guitar and stuff, and they're like, I've never heard of it. Like, So I was a little like nervous, like I didn't quite know what to expect, but we just had a great time there. It was fun. I'll show you. Well, first of all, here's the room, which I thought was cute. It's like from 1890s, I think. And I love they painted it like this blue, and it was just real cozy. It was nice. And so that night they had what they called, I forget. It was Thursday. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday they have jazz. On Friday and Saturday, you might have to pay like a $10 or $20 cover charge to get in. But on Thursday, they have, I forget the name. Oh, shoot. Anyway, these guys who play jazz, a three-piece, from 7 until I think 8 or 9, I don't remember. And then they have like open mic or whatever you call it. Not, I don't know, like open. And it was so fun and I was like, this is the most exciting thing I've ever seen. I was getting like giddy. I'll show you. Okay. I don't have a picture here of the original guys, but actually, wait a minute. I have this video. I'll turn the sound off so we don't. Okay, so here's like this guy who looked like Colin Jost, and then this drummer, and this guy was playing this trumpet. He was really good. He was really good. I want to play the sound, but I'm afraid I'll get demonetized. Maybe I'll put it on as a short. And then this guy, he was funny because he brought up music, and they kind of made fun of him. This guitar, nobody ever played during this session. There was a pianist. Oh, hold on. Oops, shoot. Hold on. There was this guy playing the tiniest saxophone I've ever seen. Do you see how tiny it is? There was another guy playing a full-size saxophone, but he's not in this video. But it was funny because, they take turns, like going from person to person playing little solos or whatever. I don't know. But this guy, all of a sudden they look at him and he has his glass of wine and his tiny sax, and he kind of looked around to set the wine down, but there were people sitting at the tables, so he just started playing one-handed on his wine. It was funny. I was like, you're funny. Anyway, let's see, maybe I can just I don't want to play too much because we'll get busted. I don't have a picture of the other guy. Oh, this was funny. So then I look over and I see this guy. He sounds. But even more funny is his wife over here. Look at her face. Anyway, that was there was a band playing while you eat dinner because you could order like a full meal. And the food was mid. To use that word mid again, that's midi. But it was really mediocre. The food, I didn't really like it, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. So the band playing while you eat food was like a quieter kind of band. And then after that, so we all have dessert in this picture. So this guy's been there a little while. I'll give him that. But that's when these guys come in. Oh. This song might get me demonetized. You know that one. Dun, dun, dun. Oh yeah, there was a trombone. It was fun. It was all very fun. And then like this drummer left. They're like, we need a drummer. Does anybody play the drums? Oh yeah, let's hear him. Oh no, it's not him just playing. So one interesting thing though, I talked to the guy who owned, what the heck, where'd my photos go? Hold on, sorry. I talked to the guy who owned the bass. And that is a very old instrument right there. I was like, what? I said, how old is that bass? Because I could tell it was very old. And he goes, what do you think? I go, well, I would have said 30s, but it looks older. I said, I don't know that much, but I said, I think it's pretty old. And he goes, it's from, oh my God, I think he said it's 345 years old. I was like, what? But anyway, and then this was an old Gibson guitar that the other guy had. He was in the band. Anyway, that was real fun. That was really fun. And, free to get in. Drinks were reasonable. I don't remember. Maybe $7 for a beer or whatever. I don't know. But we had reservations and had dinner. We like shared, what did we share? I think we got a pizza again. And then we got the crab cakes. And then we got a dessert. And we shared it all. And none of it was all that great. It was just okay. It was fine. It wasn't, but the music made up for it. So. All right, so then the next morning, I went out for a walk and I saw this sign and I was like, who names their real estate company? I just thought that seemed funny to me. Nobody else thinks that's funny. That seems to be something only I found funny. Everybody else I showed it to was like, okay, that's funny. Anyway, the next morning we went and had coffee at this pretty cool building. It was tile all the way up, and I think the ceiling was all tile. And it was called the Mystical Mug. And the coffee was excellent. Excellent coffee. I was like, this coffee is so good. But it was one of those situations where you're like, I'll have a latte, and you just tap your card. End of that, right? So I looked at the bill later. It was $8 for my cup of coffee, for one cup. I was like, I think that's the most I've ever paid for a latte. $8. But anyway, it was good. It was very good. So that was Delaware Water Gap. I wish I had more pictures of like the surroundings there. I'll show you a quick look. That's me. That was me, but now that I look at it on this big iPad, I have a lot of wrinkles. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Let me show you a picture of Delaware Water Gap. Let's see if we can get it to come in. Delaware Water Gap. I know this is probably all very boring, but look. See how pretty. So then when we drove out of there, we were heading towards Boston. And you take, I don't even remember. I guess you go up here. It was pretty. Like you're driving along this road. It was so pretty, that drive. And I'm pretty sure I saw a bobcat, but it was so fast that I'm like 95% sure it was a bobcat. And I haven't had a chance yet to look up if there are bobcats in the Delaware Water Gap. But my whole life I've wanted to see a wild bobcat. And I think I did. But it was so fast. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. Where the hotel was. Okay, so right here on this side of the hotel is the Appalachian Trail. And this is kind of one of the towns, that the hikers stop in. So right up the street it was called Church of the Mountain or something. And I think that's where a lot of hikers stop and camp and clean up for the night maybe. So that made it really cool for the jazz club because you had old people like me, I guess, who were staying in the building. You had locals. You had jazz people. And then you had all these hikers come in. So it was such a mix of people. And apparently the reason why it's a good, why they get good jazz players in, because over the years they've had like some famous jazz people come in, is because where it's located right here, I guess, to drive like from New York and New Jersey, if you're like a jazz player, you drive out here and this would be like sort of a Poconos mountains. People knew they had jazz there, so they'd show up from around, and it was packed. It was jam packed on a Thursday night, and I think that's because some of these guys had hats that said like Brooklyn on them and stuff. So I think they were coming from New York. But yeah, it was fun. And the hotel room, I think it was $100. I think it was $100, and you had a private bath. Now, when you walk from the, okay, so here's, whoops, what am I writing on? I don't know. So here's the, building, okay, and here's the front porch. It's like a covered front porch, and the porch goes around this way. So you walk up the steps and you go check in the bar area, and then they say, okay, walk out here and walk up here and take some steps, and then there's like more steps this way. Well, I admit that on the initial walk down this area, there was a lot of like trash and tables with cigarette butts, and it just looked a little sketch, where I was going, uh-oh, what have we gotten into here? And then you go up these steps and you turn, and there's a pretty garden kind of area back here. And you go up these steps, and there's another, porch on this level that comes around. So that was kind of pretty. But also, I think maybe they were doing some work. So there was a lot of like debris, and just didn't look perfectly clean. So I got a little worried. And if you can't do steps, it's not for you, because there are a lot of steps. Although I saw like a very old man, he was one of the other drummers, he was doing the steps. But anyway, then you go in through this door here, and there is this hallway, and it's so old that the floor is on a angle. And I was like, I hope this building's stable. I mean, it has been here a long time. So you're walking kind of crooked, and then you go up another flight of steps. And that took us to this floor. Oops, I wrote on my iPad. Whoops. And then we were in that room. That was super cute. So I was like, okay, fine. But you could go up another flight of steps to this floor. And I'll tell you, we were there on the hottest day of the year, and the little air conditioner in the window worked fine. We were plenty cool and whatever. No problem. But yeah, if you can't handle steps, or if you like places that are like every bit of the property is super clean, I don't know if it was that, but the room was super clean. The room was great. There was no issue with that. So yeah, that's that. I wish I had a map of the town, because so here's our place, and there's one street basically, and I went for a walk. You could go down here, down the Appalachian Trail a bit. I went down this way, and there's a river, and that's what you can canoe on. There's a bridge over the river. And then you turn down this street, and down here there's like a bakery and a barbecue and a sushi place. Not a lot. It's not. And then Mythical Coffee was here, and the Church of the Mountain, which I don't know if it was really a church or what. I don't know. But that was over here. And then right here is where they rent canoes and kayaks and stuff like that. So it's not like a whole lot there, but I feel like it would be enough to spend a couple nights, go see some jazz. Also right in here somewhere, there's another brewery that said they have live music. So you could go to two different places. So yeah. So I think we probably spent, with tax and everything, probably 100 and, I don't know, maybe, I don't remember exactly, maybe 120 for the room. And then we had dinner and drinks, but we sort of split all the food. I feel like that was like 120 with drinks, but we only had one drink each. Maybe I had two, I don't remember. But, so not bad, really. trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. So then the next morning we had the coffee. And then I guess we got in the car and we headed towards Boston. And that is a different video, I think. But I will say, you can't do Boston on a budget. Not really. I kind of was like, whatever. I mean, Boston's expensive. I'm sure I could have done, I don't know, I'll do a different video on Boston. But that's that. So hopefully that wasn't too boring for you. Let's just look up Deerhead Inn and see if we can get a little more information. Hold on one second. Deerhead Inn, Delaware. Because there's two of them. There's one in New York where I was like, wait, that's not the one. What pictures do they have? Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty. I thought it was pretty. There they have people playing. I mean, that's so fun. The excitement I felt when the guys who are, scheduled to play, when they set their instruments down and all of a sudden just these, I mean, I'm sure they all know each other. I don't know. I don't know if they do or not. But all these random people just start walking up and they come in with instruments or they grab the other guy's instruments. I'm like, what is going on? I felt like that's the drummer who was playing with the band we saw. I felt like so excited by the whole thing. I mean, literally, I was like grinning from ear to ear. I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Oh yeah, there's the street it's on. I forgot what I was looking for. There's one of the rooms. Ours was cuter than that, I think. We were in room 304. It was a queen room. It was cute. What was I looking for? Oh, just for like history. Let's see. Deerhead and Delaware Water Gap history. Let's see what they say here. Okay, we'll use AI. Fine. The Deerhead Inn in Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania, is a historic landmark with a rich history dating back to the 19th century. Originally called Central House, it has evolved from a stagecoach stop to a popular jazz club and inn, recognized as the oldest continuously running jazz club in the United States. What? The inn opened in 1808 during Thomas Jefferson's presidency, serving as a tavern, lodging, and market. It was built by Samuel Overfield between 1853 and 1865, and during the Civil War it was used as a hospital. Oh yeah, I read that while I was there. They would like put all the men in beds in all the rooms. That's why I love old hotels, because you can sit there and like imagine it and go, oh my gosh. The inn was renamed the Deerhead Inn in the 1930s and became a hub for jazz musicians in the mid-20th century. It became known as a gathering place for jazz musicians who played at the larger resorts in the Pocono Mountains. Oh, okay. It has hosted jazz artists like Zoot Sims, Stan Getz, who I love, Phil Woods, and Keith Jarrett. Today, the Deerhead Inn continues to operate as a jazz club, restaurant, and inn, maintaining its historic charm and welcoming guests with live music, delicious food, and comfortable lodging. Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess there were people who were probably being paid to play at other places, and then they'd go there to just play what they want and have fun and stuff. That was one thing about all the musicians. They just seemed like they were having fun, like a really good time, and that is infectious. When you see a musician playing and they're just like loving it, it makes everybody in the room love it. I did say that, didn't I? That it was like such an eclectic crowd because of the backpackers coming in, and I don't know if they knew what they were getting into. You know, they walked in there all like, oh wow, what's going on, you know? And it was all fun. And then like some of the guys who play jazz, they'd just sit down at a table with random people and start talking. I was like, this is so cool. I love it. I want to go back. Anyway, all right, well, yeah, I want to go back for like a weekend and go on a Thursday, go to the open jazz, I think, and then maybe Friday do a canoe trip, and then Saturday do a bunch of hiking. Maybe see another jazz show, or maybe try the other brewery place. I don't know. Seems fun.